Welcome to the Elite BSC podcast, where our entire focus is helping commercial janitorial contractors succeed. You want a growing company, a thriving team, and healthy profits, and we are here to help. My name is Jordan Tong. I'm the founder of Elite BSC, a company dedicated to helping janitorial companies grow and thrive. I also serve as CEO and one of the owners of France Building Services. France is a janitorial company employing nearly 600 people. Since 2007, we grew from 1.5 million to more than 20 million in annual revenue and built what I think is one of the best teams in the world. The goal of Elite BSC in this podcast is to give owners in the industry a vision of where their company can be and the information and tools to get there. I want to share what I have learned over the years to make this a reality for you. Hey guys, welcome to 2026. 2025 was a pretty good year for us over here at Elite BSC. A lot of things happening. Our team grew by a significant amount. Had our first big conference, started doing a significant amount of marketing work, and just a lot of really cool things happening. And then also, just as I've connected with people around the industry, there's a lot of good buzz in the industry right now, and a lot of rising stars and growing companies and kind of a new guard of people coming into the industry. And so it's just exciting to be on the front end of this. Some of you all have been so gracious in giving us good feedback and suggestions here at Elite on how we can do a better job of fostering that community of learning and peer networking and that sort of thing. And so we are dedicated to that and have some exciting things that we're planning to do this year. So in starting 2026, I was thinking about topics for maybe what to talk about in this podcast or some upcoming podcasts. And I came across an article or a Substack that was a guy about the handle, I guess, on Substack is Polymath Investor. And it was actually a recommended thing for me. It's not somebody that I follow. And they had whoever the author is, I don't know if it's a man or a woman, but created what they called a luck field manual, 33 rules for engineering serendipity, how to systematically increase your exposure to opportunity. And this immediately intrigued me or caught my attention because one of the questions that I often think about is what is it that makes some people successful and other seemingly talented people not as successful? And you hear, if you've had any measure of success, often people will lob out there that you've been lucky. And, I don't believe in luck per se. But you sort of get what people are saying. Like, hey, the stars just aligned for you. But they don't do that for everybody. Or, God's just smiling on you and there's not, whatever it is. And we see this, right? We intuit this. Some of you may experience this yourself, which is great. And I think that you'll see some why behind that. But we do know this is a reality that's out there. And it's hard to put our finger on why that's the case. We see some people that just seem to stumble onto great opportunities again and again. They meet the right person at the right time. Like they get the deal, they get the breakthrough, they get the new idea, etc. And we call them lucky as if they just happened to be the one that, that those opportunities fell upon, as if it was just random. And what he argues or the author argues in this particular little manual is that luck isn't random, and I'm going to quote here, it's the byproduct of specific behaviors. Lucky people aren't born different, they operate differently. They've built what some call a luck surface area, the total contact zone between themselves and opportunity. And this is actually, I think, really insightful. And this topic, I think, is so relevant in so many different things that we do. So you don't just have to be an entrepreneur or someone who's out there kind of a rogue investor. Like I think this applies at numerous job positions and initiatives that we would take on, or new opportunities our companies might, latch onto and try out. And so one way to think about this is if you think about opportunities, or we'll call them luck, that come your way. Imagine it's like rain that's falling. and you were trying to catch as much of that rain as possible. And so if you're just using like a tiny teaspoon measuring cup or something like that, like the amount of rain or luck that you're going to catch is minimal. However, if you have a gallon bucket or a tub or a swimming pool, you're going to catch a lot more because the surface area that you're collecting the rain from is much greater. And so the idea behind this is that more exposure to opportunity, better positioning to recognize it, and enough resilience and grit to stay in the game is how some people seem to incur more luck or success along the way. So what I'm going to do, and I'll probably break this into 2 episodes. I'm going to do this one, and then I'll kind of break down half of these things. He gives 33 different tips or descriptors of what put people in the way of success and opportunities. And I'm not going to go over all 33 of those. We'll kind of hit some highlights. And it may take this episode and another one to do that. So I hope this maybe lays a little bit of, or sets the tone for this, or maybe creates a little bit of intrigue on your end. So the first part, and this covers 4 different tips that they lay out here, is to take more shots. And the idea behind this is that the more tries that you have at something, the more likely that you're going to land on something that is successful. This certainly resonates with me. In a couple different areas of life, I can think about this. Just in business, it has certainly been the case. Just trying different things, having a pretty really exploring a lot of different opportunities, and a lot of them that failed, but allowed us to land on some good ones. And Elite BSC is one of those. I've told the story about that started. Elite BSC really started as me, a failed attempt at me trying to have an Amazon business where I sold product that I manufactured in China. And it's a long, circuitous route to how that became Elite BSC. But it was some of those random shots that ended up sticking as a result of some failed shots that didn't stick. When we think about people, like famous people, like painters or inventors, we don't realize that they didn't just have one painting or a handful of paintings. Like Picasso painted over 50,000 works. And Edison, who's known for the light bulb, along with a couple other inventions, filed over 1,000 patents. And it was all of these and hundreds of tries to get the light bulb. And so it's all of these iterations, these attempts that people make, that one of them ends up sticking. And so the idea is that volume is going to beat perfection. So I've said before that you don't want to let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And so striving for perfection will often and can be a crippling thing in that it keeps us from trying more and new things that have a greater chance of succeeding. And so sort of in keeping with this is that we want to experiment fast and kill fast, is something that is said in this manual here. And that is true. So we want to tinker with ideas. We don't want to be a loose cannon to where we're creating chaos in our organization. So we need people around us to help balance us. But every initiative that we try is sort of like an experiment. Like we try something, we get feedback, and we adapt. If it's not working, let's just toss it out. Let's move on to something else. If it's working a little bit, let's tweak it and see if we can't improve the process. And we should just maintain a posture of creativity in terms of and willingness to try things and increase the volume of doing that. And we're going to get more sticks. And this is going to be true within our business, and I think also broadly as you think about with yourself or your family or your investments or whatever you're doing, that will help generate more success. So, and then lastly under this take more shots is action creates options. And so the idea is that some people can get analysis paralysis, or they get stuck in planning and strategy mode for so long that they neglect, like they don't move forward. They don't get going, or they get going very slow. And so I've been accused of having a ready, fire, aim approach to things, which can be true at times and maybe a liability at times. But I think some people can equally fall into ready, aim, and never fire. And you can be certain that you're not going to have multiple successes coming your way if that's in any area of life, if that's your posture. So, and part of this, don't be afraid to fail. So the second, I guess, category or topic that's talked about in this luck field manual is to be visible. And he lists several things here, and I'm not going to go into all of these because I don't even necessarily specifically agree with all of them or think they're all relevant to my audience. But this one's to be visible. And here's what they say: excellent work that remains hidden generates zero luck. People cannot offer you what they don't know you want. And so there is a sense, I am not suggesting that you go out and be boastful about what you know and what you're doing, etc. I think, to me, that pride level has an ick factor that, sort of in the rise of the social media influencer age and getting clicks, there's sort of this idea of putting a camera on myself and making myself look grand. And I think that's a bad long-term play. Obviously, people are going to have some wins that way. I just think it's morally problematic in a lot of ways. But that being said, it is not wrong to be visible, to be in and around the people that you might want to interact with or do business with, and be visible about what you do and what you excel at and the things that you're working on and focusing on, and the desires and goals you have, and maybe how you're meeting some of those. I think that's done rightly. It can help people see who you are and what you're about, and put people in contact with you as it relates to your strengths and the opportunities that might arise between them and you. And I think this is helpful. And again, it doesn't have to be just LinkedIn posts about how good your cleaning company is. You can broaden this out a little bit and into some other areas of life that I think will have overlap. And so this moves into part 3 of the field manual here, is to meet the right people is the next heading. And here's the idea here, is that the more people that we can put ourselves in contact with, and the more circles maybe that we swim in, the more opportunities that are going to surface for us. And often, if you think about this is something he mentions here, is that weak ties or weak friendships or weak acquaintances often generate more opportunities than the strong ones. So if you think about the people that your close circle are people that are like you as a general rule, and you're sort of already thinking about this or doing the same sorts of things, whereas new people that you're not super close with, it's going to be a lot more varied. But this variance, this varied experience, varied, lives of other people and what they're doing, etc., is going to bump us up against a lot more opportunities that might turn into something that resembles success, or our version of success that we're looking for. So, exposing ourselves to information and chances by having a lot more acquaintances is something going to expose us to more opportunities that we would never encounter otherwise. And part of this, if you think about it, here's a couple of things that maybe go along with this, is be willing to talk to strangers. If you're an entrepreneur, you know this, and you do this probably. But it's just good to interact with a lot of people from various walks of life. And it's one of those things that picks up momentum over the years, especially if you're rooted in a specific community or group of people, maybe that is bound by, whatever, maybe it's geography or whatever. But over time, that social capital starts to build and can pay dividends in the long run. And as somebody, I'm 42, and I can look back over the last, 15 to 20 years in my career and see how I'm reaping benefits perhaps later in life that were because of certain activities and relationships that I had earlier in my career. And then right along beside this one is don't burn bridges. And this one is obvious, but man, I see it happen a lot where people burn bridges. They get mad, they get frustrated, they end a relationship on a bad or sour note, and they don't reconcile, they don't make things right, they don't they just leave things hanging, and that kind of severs the relationship or the possibility of opportunities or further positive things coming out of the relationship later on down the road. And you do that multiple times, you're going to close a bunch of doors in your life. And that's just something that we don't want to do. And then lastly, this is going to be part 4, and this thing has, I think, 9 parts. So I'll stop with this. This will be my last one that I'll talk about on this episode, is positioning yourself well. And something that he points out, and I've never really thought about this until reading this, or not in this exact way, is that we should build unique combinations of skill or expertise or interest. And this is actually super insightful, that often the opportunities that come our way or that we uncover are found at the cross-section or the intersection of 2 kind of diverse or unique skill sets that you have or expertises that you have. And when you're good at one thing and then you're good at another kind of unrelated thing, and in those two, there's a point of overlap between those 2 things, you can find yourself positioned to exploit an opportunity at that overlap that is unique to you or only the people that have that unique skill set or expertise on those 2 various things. And you can see obviously how this plays out. I mean, you look at all these businesses that have this special niche, and it's often because of this principle in play. And so they give an example here in this manual. It says someone who's deeply understands machine learning and healthcare becomes the obvious choice for projects at that intersection. And so you think about our industry, so if you're in the janitorial industry, really knowing and being good at our industry, but then being curious and intellectually curious and willing to explore other ideas and skill sets that are unrelated to our industry. And maybe it's technology, maybe it's, it could be a whole host of things. I don't even want to put a box around this because the world is so full of surprises. But that curiosity will lead to new sets of skills or expertise if we put our hand to it and stay with it. And then at some point, you're going to have enough of these divergent things that you're going to find that there's some overlaps, and you'll find that there's opportunities that are waiting at those intersections. So my call to you all after this would be that you would maintain a posture that maybe you've lost as you've aged of intellectual curiosity, and reignite that flame a little bit and see if developing some skills, expertise, knowledge in some unique or weird areas don't come into play and create something pretty special down the road. So this is helpful to me. This is super interesting. It helps make explicit some things that I implicitly know or have seen. In the next episode, I'll go into the second half of this, and there's some other unique insights that have to do with overcoming challenges and being flexible and protecting your downside and that sort of thing. So we'll look into those. But hopefully this gives you a little bit of substance to move on. If you want to dive into this, it's called the Luck Field Manual, and it's Polymath Investor is the author. What I've got is like a condensed version, which he gave out for free. You actually had to pay a lot of money for the more full version, but this was enough for me here. So I hope this is helpful, and we'll see you next time.
If you found the information in this podcast helpful, please like and subscribe on whatever podcast platform that you're using. If you would like more resources or help to grow your cleaning company, head over to EliteBSC.com. We have loads of articles, videos, free tools, coaching options, and a lot more. If your company is greater than $500K in revenue and you want to take your learning experience to the next level, check out our mastermind group. You can learn more about that at EliteBSC.com/mastermind.